แล้ว one people okay time to eat my breakfast oh 2 p.m. my weight is my weight is 59 I will make my pressure let's go let's taste it hello
กรุณาอย่าเคลื่อนไหวและทำตัวให้ผ่อนคลายนะคะพร้อมตรวจสอบภาพแขนให้ตรงกับระดับหัวใจค่ะด้วยวัดความดันโลหิตได้เลยค่ะค่าความดันโลหิตขณะหัวใจบิดตัวถือเท่ากัน113มิลลิเมตรประหลอดค่าความดันโลหิตขณะหัวใจคลายตัวหรือค่าแรกของคุณคือ68มิลลิเมตรประหลอดอัตราการเต้นของหัวใจต่อนาทีของคุณ55คือเสร็จสิ้นการวัดความดันโลหิตแล้วค่ะตามมาตรฐานองค์การอนามัยโลกผลการวัดความดันโลหิตของคุณปกติค่ะขอบคุณสำหรับการใช้งานค่ะ
โอเค
ขอให้คุณมีสุขภาพที่ดีนะคะ
Today I measure my pressure is usual time to eat everyone Okay, I will eat with my this sticky rice and salad. My banana and better soy milk. Better soy milk. And I bought this mixed chicken, mixed basil with egg. And each of them 20 baht but I bought 3 of them is 50 baht อันนี้ 20 baht 20 baht apple and apple tomato all of this 50 baht 50 this is 45 baht I think it's 5 baht 5 10 15 20 25 30 35 40 45 baht สลัด is 60 baht plus this 45 105 baht 105 baht plus 50 baht 155 baht and this mix basil 8 rice is 30 baht plus 155 baht equal 185 baht this is 10 baht 195 baht 10 baht 205 baht out of this okay I will eat it today and maybe I will watch movie in English and or learn some new skill this banana I bought it from yesterday okay my charger I diet 21.30 hour from yesterday I eat only one meal a day today I will try every single day but tomorrow I will eat maybe 2 meal because I will go with my friend to Bangkok okay first thing I will eat today is banana um banana is very healthy food 2 gram of sugar 9 gram of fat and 120 milligram of sodium 140 kilocalorie it have contain protein and omega 369 and 9 amino acid quality soybean unsweetened check well before you drinking It's very smell good Today I'm very feel good. Maybe I will learn some new skill.
Welcome friends, I'm Dr. Rajrina Budripad and today's video is all about longevity and what you can do to extend your lifespan. Human life expectancy has been increasing worldwide since the 19th century. In fact, it increased by almost 20 years since 1950. Currently, the average life expectancy in the United States is 79. But what if you could live to 95 or beyond? Well, stay tuned because that's what we're going to go over in today's video. But more important than our lifespan is our health span, which is the portion of our lives spent without any disease or disability. If we're going to live longer, we want to stay healthy so that we can enjoy those additional years.
My girlfriend bought this. This is 17 gram of sugar and 13 gram of fat, 100 gram of sodium, 250 gram kilocalorie, cupcake, orange flower filling fill. It is 17 gram of sugar, 11 gram of fat, 140 gram of sodium. It's very sweet. I will not eat it. No. My girlfriend bought it when I go to Petbury. I will eat this watermelon. This is natural sugar.
So the main question of today's video is, welcome friends, I'm Dr. Rajrina Budripad and today's video is all about longevity and what you can do to extend your lifespan. Human life expectancy has been increasing worldwide since the 19th century. In fact, it increased by almost 20 years since 1950. Currently, the average life expectancy in the United States is 79. But what if you could live to 95 or beyond? Well, stay tuned because that's what we're going to go over in today's video. But more important than our lifespan is our health span, which is the portion of our lives spent without any disease or disability. If we're going to live longer, we want to stay healthy so that we can enjoy those additional years. So the main question of today's video is, how could I live to be 100 and healthy? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to describe what causes the aging process and what you can do to slow it down through diet and lifestyle. Aging is something that affects all living beings, and the truth is that no one can fully escape aging. We will all inevitably succumb to the aging process and will one day die. It can be horrifying when we realize that everyone eventually dies, and it can be hard to think about the mortality of our loved ones as well as our own mortality. Outward signs of aging include fatigue, gray hairs, skin wrinkles, aches and pains, loss of muscle, as well as hearing loss. Sadly, a lot of times people will go to their doctor and report these symptoms, like their new aches and pains, and they're just told that it's normal because they're getting older. In my practice, I like to take a more proactive and preventative approach to health span and longevity. This means we address symptoms early. We check lab biomarkers every 3 to 6 months. Based on their symptoms and lab results, I counsel my patients individually on their diet, lifestyle, and some key supplements. The good news is I'm going to share a lot of these tips in this video today so that you can be proactive about your health and longevity as well. These are the key lab biomarkers that I follow on my patients. They're available through most standard labs, so you can request your doctor to order these for you. We optimize the vitamin D level because it's so powerful, it's often considered a longevity hormone. Next, we look closely at the fasting glucose, insulin, and hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker of the blood sugars for the last 3 months. The research shows that having a lower fasting glucose and insulin correlates with better longevity. The high sensitivity C-reactive protein is a great way to measure inflammation in your body, and the lower the inflammation, the better it is for longevity. Homocysteine is another inflammation marker that evaluates your methylation and detox pathways in your body. The lower your homocysteine, the better, and we like to optimize your level to 6 by supplementing with methylated B vitamins. Your lipid panel, which is your cholesterol, and your liver enzymes tell me a lot about your metabolic health. If your liver enzymes are elevated due to inflammation, as seen in fatty liver disease, that could also affect your longevity. My goal is to help my patients achieve optimal health and peak performance at any age. How old you are is just a number, and it's your chronological age. But just because you are 65 doesn't mean you have to feel 65. Your biological age tells us how you're aging on a physiological level. We all know people who look a lot younger than they really are. Their biological age may be less than their chronological age. Currently, there are certain companies that offer blood tests that look at your DNA methylation patterns to estimate your biological age. What's fascinating is they've analyzed the DNA of supercentenarians, which is people who live beyond the age of 110, and they found that their biological age is far younger than their chronological age. Let's review all the factors that can influence your longevity. It includes multiple factors, including your genetics, your diet and the types of foods that you eat, your exercise and activity level, the amount of stress that you're under, and the quality of sleep that you get, your exposure to toxins from your environment. Finally, your relationships with people and your involvement in the community. Now let's delve into the exciting science of why we age on a DNA and cellular level. The first hallmark of aging is genomic instability. This is when our DNA gets damaged by exposure to free radicals. This includes exposure to radiation, such as X-rays, CT scans, and even natural radiation from the sun.
olive oil everyone
Next, we have exposure to toxins,
Good
like
fat.
chemicals and pesticides. Certain medications can also be hard on your DNA. Finally, emotional stress can also accelerate aging of your DNA. In fact, most centenarians, which is the people who reach 100 years of age, live in lower stress environments. How many of you have heard of telomeres? So these are the protective end caps on the end of our chromosomes. As we get older, there's shrinking of these telomeres so that our DNA is not as protected from all the stressors that we're exposed to. Now let's talk about the epigenome. Our epigenome is like an on-off switch. It determines which parts of our DNA are going to be expressed and which parts are going to remain silent. Our epigenome controls whether we're going to turn on or off our longevity genes. As we get older, our epigenome gets altered, and it starts making mistakes as far as turning on and off certain genes, and this contributes to the aging process. Next, as we get older, our muscles start to shrink. We call this sarcopenia, which means muscle wasting. This loss of healthy protein maintenance is one of the reasons people become more weak and frail as they get older. This is why strength training can be so important to maintain muscle mass as you get older. Another hallmark of aging is mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondria are the energy powerhouses of your cell.
This is very a lot of sugar. I will not eat a lot of sugar. I put my olive oil in my salad.
Cells, and they generate ATP, which is the molecule that gives you energy. The healthy mitochondria of a young person can generate tons of ATP. As mitochondria age, they become more dysfunctional, and they don't do as good a job in generating ATP. This contributes to the drop in energy and fatigue that we see in older people. Next, aging is associated with the accumulation of senescent cells. The green cell on the left is a healthy cell, but eventually, over time, it evolves to become a senescent cell, which is kind of like a zombie cell, because it doesn't do anything productive for your body, it doesn't replicate, and yet it won't die. Unfortunately, these zombie cells attract inflammation, which can contribute to the aging process. Another hallmark of aging is that your body starts to run out of stem cells.
This is have sticky rice and shrimp, egg, fried egg and mixed basil, banana, apple and watermelon, and a small tomato. This salad, egg and spare veggie. I have this. This is seafood. Maybe I will use it a little bit for its good tasty.
Stem cells have the power to turn into any kind of cell. So normally they help your body regenerate tissue after an injury. For example, when an older person injures a joint, it doesn't heal as well because they don't have many stem cells left. The final hallmark of aging is disrupted communication between your cells. The signaling and interaction between cells becomes impaired, and this leads to the accumulation of inflammatory molecules. Each and every one of us has an epigenetic clock, and it's ticking based on how our environment is influencing the expression of our genes. Our epigenetic clock is what determines our longevity. Girls who go through early puberty have an accelerated epigenetic clock. This has been linked to exposure to xenoestrogens and chemicals in the environment, which cause these hormonal changes to occur early. So in order to live longer, we need to slow down our epigenetic clock. Let's go over three main factors that influence our epigenetic clock and our longevity. Sirtuins are enzymes that activate the expression of our longevity genes. AMP kinase is the master switch of your metabolism that also promotes longevity. Finally, we have mTOR, which is the master controller of cell growth, which unfortunately will accelerate aging. In order to understand sirtuins, we first have to understand how our DNA is packaged in the nucleus of our cells. If we laid out all the DNA in our body end to end, it would stretch twice the diameter of the solar system. That's why our DNA is tightly wound up, and it's wrapped around spooling proteins called histones. Sirtuins are enzymes that help unravel the histones. and by doing so, they select which genes are going to be expressed. They're considered epigenetic regulators, so they work like an on-off switch to turn on your longevity genes. Sirtuins require a critical coenzyme called NAD, which stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. As we get older, our NAD levels start diminishing, and unfortunately, this causes a decline in sirtuin activity. This is thought to be why we develop a lot more diseases as we age. The good news is later in this video, I'm going to go over diet and lifestyle tips that'll help boost your sirtuin activity and increase your NAD levels. The next pathway promoting longevity is AMP kinase, which is the master switch for your metabolism. AMP kinase is an enzyme present in your cells that influences insulin sensitivity and glucose uptake. The more we can activate our AMP kinase, the better for longevity. Stay tuned because later in this video, I'm going to go over diet, lifestyle, and supplements that can help boost your AMP kinase. Unfortunately, a lot of people suffer with problems with their AMP kinase, which is what causes insulin resistance, which can then lead to diabetes, chronic inflammation, and accelerated aging. Now let's talk about mTOR, which is the master driver of cell growth. Lead to AMP kinase. Over the better glucose uptake, which is the master switch for your metabolism. AMP kinase is an enzyme present in your cells that influences insulin sensitivity and glucose uptake. The more we can activate our AMP kinase, the better for longevity. Stay tuned because later in this video, I'm going to go over diet, lifestyle, and supplements that can help boost your AMP kinase. Unfortunately, a lot of people suffer with problems with their AMP kinase, which is what causes insulin resistance, which can then lead to diabetes, chronic inflammation, and accelerated aging. Now let's talk about mTOR, which is the master driver of cell growth. When you lift weights and eat a lot of animal protein, mTOR helps you to build up your muscle mass. But the bad news is mTOR also turns off your longevity genes. We all need mTOR to grow new cells and maintain our muscle mass, but too much mTOR is bad for our longevity. When it comes to your diet, animal proteins from meat and dairy products are big drivers of mTOR. Animal proteins are higher in certain amino acids, such as methionine and branched-chain amino acids, which include leucine, isoleucine, and valine. These amino acids cause a rise in two hormones, insulin, which comes from your pancreas, and IGF-1, which is made by your liver. Both of these hormones promote the mTOR pathway, which again is bad for longevity. Studies have shown that diets that are high in animal proteins are associated with higher cardiovascular mortality and cancer risk. Processed meats are especially bad, and this includes hot dogs, bacon, sausage, and ham. So if you want to live longer, sitting in sausage and ham, especially bad, and this includes hot dogs, bacon, sausage, and ham. So if you want to live longer, sitting down and eating a huge steak is probably not a good idea. Not to mention, animal protein also affects your gut microbiome. When you eat a lot of red meat and dairy products, this causes the bacteria in your gut to produce something called TMA, which stands for trimethylamine. TMA is converted by your liver into TMAO, which is trimethylamine oxide. Unfortunately, TMAO is a toxic inflammatory compound, and high levels is associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, which is heart disease and stroke. So the conundrum is how can you build muscle, which requires mTOR, and live longer? The main takeaway is to be mindful of how much animal protein you're eating that may build muscle, heart disease, and stroke. So the conundrum is how can you build muscle, which requires mTOR, and live longer? The main takeaway is to be mindful of how much animal protein you're eating and try to eat more plant-based proteins. Now, aside from eating less meat, what's another way to put the brakes on mTOR? The answer is autophagy. How many of you have heard of autophagy before? Well, it has a Greek origin. Auto means self, and phagy means to eat. So the literal meaning of autophagy is self-eating. Autophagy happens when you're fasting, and it's a great way to clean up cellular garbage. Anything inside your cells that is considered garbage will merge with a lysosome, creating an autophagosome, and this is where the recycling and breakdown takes place. So autophagy is the process of removing, recycling, and regenerating at a cellular level. mTOR and autophagy are completely opposite processes, so they're kind of like day and night. While mTOR promotes building muscle and cell growth, autophagy promotes cell cleanup, repair, and most importantly, longevity. Autophagy is a remarkable process, and it promotes longevity through multiple pathways. It activates sirtuins, it activates AMP kinase, it increases your NAD levels, and it puts the brakes on mTOR. A big takeaway from today's video is that fasting activates autophagy and promotes longevity. I have a whole video dedicated to autophagy, so if you'd like to learn more, please see the link in the description below. Over the years, studies have been done on yeast, worms, flies, mice, monkeys, as well as humans. What's fascinating is that the research shows that calorie restriction or time-restricted eating, which is a form of fasting, improves lifespan in all of these species. An interesting study was actually done on mice, where they gave different groups of mice different types of diets. The study revealed that the mice that only had access to their food for a 2-hour window each day lived the longest. So clearly, our American culture of eating constantly throughout the day is not a good way to promote longevity. Many Americans throughout the day is not a good way to promote longevity. Many Americans eat 3 meals a day along with multiple snacks in between, not realizing what it's doing to their epigenetic clock. Now let's talk about how your gut microbiome can influence your longevity. As Hippocrates once said, all disease begins in the gut. In fact, heart disease, cancer, and dementia have all been linked to dysbiosis, which is a bacterial imbalance in the gut microbiome. Dysbiosis can happen if you're eating a lot of inflammatory foods, such as the standard American diet. Exposure to certain medications like antibiotics, proton pump inhibitors which shut down the acid production in your stomach, as well as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs such as ibuprofen can all impact your gut microbiome. Finally, being under chronic stress raises your cortisol levels, and this can also change the types of bacteria that grow in your gut. The reason the bacteria in your microbiome are so important is they create postbiotics, which are short-chain fatty acids that impact your energy and metabolism. Finally, our biggest immune system is in the lining of our gut. This is why I always ask my patients about their bowel movements. If you're having any symptoms like abdominal discomfort, heartburn, constipation, or bloating, it needs to be addressed. We often look for the root cause by doing a very comprehensive gut microbiome test. Now let's talk about inflammation. Acute inflammation is an integral part of your immune response to defend your body against pathogens like bacteria or viruses. Acute inflammation is like a big fire in your body, but it only lasts days to weeks, and then it's put out. On the other hand, chronic inflammation can last for months to years, and it's like having many small fires throughout your body that won't stop burning. Chronic inflammation is a big deal because it promotes aging. We call this inflammaging. A common root cause of chronic inflammation is an inflammatory diet. Diets high in fast foods and processed foods expose you to a lot of sugar, trans fat, and preservatives. Next, if you have a disrupted gut microbiome or inflammation in the lining of your gut, which we often call leaky gut, this could also cause chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation could also come from your oral microbiome. So if you have poor dental hygiene or inflamed gums, this could also promote inflammaging. Exposure to toxins like cigarette smoke will also accelerate the aging process. Obesity is a growing epidemic in the United States, and it's another cause of inflammaging. Finally, being under chronic stress raises your cortisol levels, which can also accelerate the aging process. Now let's talk about sugar. Sugary treats are everywhere in our culture, like donuts, cakes, ice cream, and cookies. But did you know that sugar can accelerate aging and cause wrinkles? When you eat a lot of refined sugar, it causes the production of advanced glycation end products, which can promote all kinds of diseases, like heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and autoimmune diseases. Sugar also spikes your insulin levels. If you have chronically elevated insulin levels, this is called hyperinsulinemia, and it's inflammatory. So the big takeaway is if you want to look younger and live longer, you definitely want to minimize your intake of refined sugar. You also want to cut back on food foods that quickly turn into sugar. This includes bread, pastas, foods made from refined flours, cereals, as well as alcoholic beverages. Foods in this category trigger more insulin release, which then alcoholic beverages. Foods made from refined flours, cereals, as well as alcoholic beverages. Foods in this category
I will turn off notification. Okay.
cereals, as well as alcoholic beverages. Foods in this category trigger more insulin release, which then causes a rise in IGF-1 from your liver, which promotes the mTOR pathway. On April 15, 2003, the Human Genome Project was completed, which was an incredible achievement. Interestingly, no genes were found for aging. So aging is very different from other disease processes. For example, there are oncogenes that can cause cancer. The Human Genome Project revealed that our genes did not evolve to cause aging. David Sinclair is a professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School. He's a pioneer and leading authority in the field of longevity, and he's done numerous studies on yeast as well as mice. Dr. Sinclair describes the information theory of aging, where our genes sense our environment, which includes our diet, exercise, and stressors, and will accordingly activate sirtuins, which turn on longevity genes. He believes that 80% of our health in old age is from our lifestyle, and only 20% is from our genetics. In 2006, Shinya Yamanaka, a Japanese stem cell researcher, discovered 4 genes that could induce human adult cells to become pluripotent stem cells. This means when these genes are turned on, it could regenerate any other cell type in the body. These 4 Yamanaka genes are now often referred to as the fountain of youth genes, and he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2012. So can we live to 150 or longer? David Sinclair believes that in the future, gene therapy through a vaccine will allow us to introduce the Yamanaka genes. Then we could use a medication to turn on the genes, and gray hairs would disappear and wrinkles would fade. Does this sound like science fiction or reality? Amazingly, this has already been done in mice, and fiction would disappear and wrinkles would fade. Does this sound like science fiction or reality? Amazingly, this has already been done in mice, and they were able to regenerate the optic nerve, which is found in the eye, which normally does not regenerate. So the science is moving extremely fast. They're also working on medications or potentially vaccines that could work as senolytics, meaning they would target these senescent or zombie cells. The good news is you can get natural senolytics from your diet, such as quercetin. Which is found in apples, onions, kale, and other fruits and vegetables. Have you heard of blue zones? These are the places in the world where people live the longest, and they have the highest number of centenarians, which are people who live beyond the age of 100. Blue zones are the longevity hotspots of the world, and they include Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Ikaria, Greece, and Loma Linda, California. What are some of the lessons we can learn from blue zones? First, they eat a mostly plant-based diet, and they don't eat any processed food. In fact, all of their food is made from scratch, and it only involves about 20 ingredients. So they eat a lot of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts, tubers, and not a lot of meat. They also eat smaller portions. For example, in Okinawa, Japan, they follow a Confucian teaching, Hara Hachi Bu, which means that you should stop eating when you're 80% full. Next, their lifestyle keeps them very active, and they slow down to eat their meals with their families. Finally, people living in blue zones have a strong social network, and the elders have a sense of altruistic purpose in their community. Altruistics. So the good news is that living a healthy and meaningful life beyond the age of 100 is possible. And there's a lot of tangible things you can do to improve your health span and longevity. Now let's key diet and lifestyle tips for longevity. Are you ready? When it comes to the diet, here are the key principles. If you want to live longer, you should eat whole foods, eat organic as much as possible, eat a wide range of colorful vegetables and fruits to get a lot of antioxidants and to feed all the good bacteria in your gut microbiome. Use extra virgin olive oil, which is a great source of polyphenols, and eat smaller amounts of animal protein. The final category is legumes and whole grains. Foods to avoid include refined sugar, processed foods, foods that turn into sugar like breads, pastas, and cereals, and deep-fried foods, which expose you to trans fat. You want to cut back on your intake of meat. Meat, dairy, and alcohol. Finally, how you eat is important as well. You want to slow down and enjoy your meals, so you want to avoid eating when stressed and avoid overeating. There's no single diet that's perfect for everyone. It has to be customized based on your health conditions and preferences. Clearly, the standard American diet is not good for longevity. The carnivore diet, where you only eat meat, and the dirty keto diet, where you eat a lot of meat and dairy products, are also bad for longevity. If you want to live longer, some of the better diets include the paleo diet, Mediterranean diet, clean keto diet, and vegetarian diet. The paleo diet is especially good if you suffer from insulin resistance or irritable bowel syndrome. And if you'd like to learn more about it, please check out my video on insulin resistance, which I'll link below. I also have a video covering the clean keto diet, and I'll put the link in the description below. Next, intermittent fasting is a great way to turn on your longevity genes. This has been studied extensively by Walter Longo, a scientist at UCLA. It's also known as time-restricted eating. One popular option is the 16-8 diet. This is where you fast for 16 hours a day, and you eat 2 meals within an 8-hour window. If this is too difficult, you can still see benefits from doing a minimum of 12 to 13 hours of fasting between your dinner and breakfast. Remember, fasting activates autophagy, which helps to turn on all the longevity genes. It also cleans up your mitochondria so that you get more energy. Fasting also activates mitophagy, which is the selective degradation of defective mitophagy. Defective mitochondria, which otherwise defective could contribute to age-related diseases. Now let's talk about exercise. Exercise is absolutely key for good health and vitality. When you exercise, you're turning on genes that make you younger at a cellular level. Exercise activates all the longevity pathways. It activates AMP kinase. It activates sirtuins. It increases your NAD levels. It improves oxygenation to your tissues, and it improves your mitochondrial function. It even helps you maintain longer telomeres. When it comes to exercise, just 10 to 20 minutes of moderate exercise per day could add years to your life. The intensity does matter, so you want to get your heart rate up to 70 to 85% of your maximal heart rate. Now let's talk about hormesis. Hormesis is the concept that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger and live longer. You can expose your body to extremes of temperature like hot or cold to activate hormesis. For example, there was a large study published from Helsinki, Finland. This study followed more than 2,000 middle-aged men and they found that those men who used the sauna up to 7 times a week had a twofold drop in heart disease and all-cause mortality compared to men who only used it once a week. So by sweating in a sauna or taking a cold shower or bath, you're providing a little stress or adversity to your body, which is hormesis, and it helps to activate your longevity genes. Now let's review some key supplements that can help improve your health span. Vitamin D is involved in so many important processes in your body that it's often referred to as a longevity hormone. That's why it's best to optimize your vitamin D level to a goal of 60 to 80 on your blood work. Methyl B complex is the energy and stress vitamin, and it promotes methylation, which is a detox pathway in each and every cell of your body. It also contains niacin, which is B3, which helps to boost your NAD level. Methyl B complex helps to lower your homocysteine level on your blood work. Our goal is to optimize your homocysteine to a level of 6, and by we are reducing your risk of heart. Heart attack, stroke, as well as Alzheimer's disease. Omega-3 fish oil helps to reduce inflammation in the body, which we can monitor by checking the high-sensitivity C-reactive protein on your blood work. Finally, I recommend magnesium at bedtime. Magnesium is involved in numerous pathways in your cells. Magnesium deficiency affects up to 45% of the American population, and it's associated with poor DNA repair capacity, telomere shortening, increased risk of cancers, heart disease, stroke, and all-cause mortality. Next, we have antioxidants. First, we have vitamin C. Then we have glutathione, which is the master antioxidant and detoxifier for your cells. Glutathione helps repair damage from radiation or toxins in the environment. Finally, we have CoQ10, which is the antioxidant that helps your mitochondria, which are the energy powerhouses of your cells. A common problem we see as people get older is that their fasting glucose starts to creep upward and they develop insulin resistance. This is when it can be helpful to use berberine. Berberine comes from the root of a plant with bright red berries. Berberine Pro has both berberine and the powerful antioxidant alpha-lipoic acid, and both of these help to activate AMP kinase, which improves insulin sensitivity and glucose uptake.
Nice to meet you, everyone. Thank you for your life. Wow. It's really amazing. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Remember, AMP kinase promotes longevity, but that's not all. Berberine is also anti-inflammatory, and it has antimicrobial properties, so it kills bad bacteria in the gut microbiome. When it comes to your lifestyle, getting quality sleep can extend your lifespan. Having a healthy circadian rhythm and healthy melatonin levels are really important for longevity. It's also important to minimize your exposure to toxins from the environment. This may be obvious, but you definitely don't want to smoke. Smoking accelerates your aging clock, and a chemical called benzopyrene causes mutations in your DNA, and this can increase your cancer risk 5-fold. Avoid pesticides by eating organic as much as possible. Pesticide. Minimize your exposure to radiation. So this means only do a CT scan when absolutely necessary. Avoid PCBs, which are found in a lot of plastics, and you never want to microwave your food in a plastic container. Finally, stay away from food additives. The best way to do this is to avoid all processed foods. Instead, make it a habit of eating whole foods. One of the lessons we can learn from Blue Zones is that your relationships with people can also extend your health span and longevity. This is why it's important to invest time in your relationships, whether it's with your family members, your friends, or your community. Having these relationships can give you a sense of purpose later in life, and this can help you live longer. This brings me to my patient Mike. Mike was determined to turn back his epigenetic clock, so I suggested he change his diet and lifestyle and take a few key supplements, as described in this video. When I saw him 3 months later, Mike had lost over 15 pounds, his energy was improved, and he told me he felt like he was 25 again. That's amazing, because Mike's chronological age is actually 59. But whenever I see Mike, he reminds me that he feels like $1 million. So here are the key points. If you want to live longer, be sure to eat more plants. In other words, eat plenty of vegetables. Practice intermittent fasting to activate autophagy, which turns on your longevity genes. Regular exercise makes you younger on a cellular level. Having a lower fasting blood sugar and insulin correlates with better longevity. Prioritizing sleep can help you live longer, and having purposeful relationships with people can also extend your life. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.
Features of keto is, hello health audience, today I want to talk about 10 so-called keto foods that might actually make you out of ketosis. Coming right up. Hey, I'm Dr. Eckberg. I'm a holistic doctor and a former Olympic decathlete. And if you want to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Some of the basic features of keto is that it's about fat adaptation. If we eat a bunch of carbs, the body gets dependent on carbs and it forgets how to burn the fat, and the carbs drive insulin and all the fats get stored, and now we can't burn it and we gain weight and we get diabetes and so forth. So the way that keto diets work is that by reducing the carbs low enough, the body eventually learns to burn fats. We get fat adapted again. And now that we eat more fat and less sugar, now we're getting more satisfied. We get full longer, and we end up eating fewer meals, and when we eat fewer meals, we end up consuming less getting more satisfied. We get full longer, and we end up eating fewer meals, and when we eat more to burn fats, we get fat adapted again. And the body eventually learns to burn fats, we get fat adapted again. And now that we eat more fat and less sugar, now we're getting more satisfied. We get full longer, and we end up eating fewer meals, and when we eat fewer meals, we end up consuming less food overall. And that's the whole goal. But we don't want to starve. We want to be satisfied in doing that, and that's exactly what the ketogenic diet does. A ketogenic diet is going to mean different things to different people, but in rough numbers, we're talking about the percentage of calories, not the percentage of grams of food, but the percentage of calories coming about 80% from fat, 15% from protein, and about 5% from carbohydrates, and that's net carbs. That means you take the total amount of carbohydrate in the food, you subtract the fiber because we don't utilize it for fuel, it doesn't affect blood sugar, and then we end up with about 25 grams of net carbs, and that's a very strict version of keto. A lot of people are going to be in keto if they back off, they're not quite that strict, and they go 70% of calories from fat, 20 from protein, and 10 from carbohydrate, and they're still going to be in ketosis. So these is not like with a full amount of carbohydrate in the food, you subtract the fiber because we don't utilize it for fuel, it doesn't affect blood sugar, and then we end up with about 25 grams of net carbs. And that's a very strict version of keto. A lot of people are going to be in keto if they back off, they're not quite that strict, and they go 70% of calories from fat, 20 from protein, and 10 from carbohydrate, and they're still going to be in ketosis. So these is not like a black and white. It's not the same for everybody, and that's where we need to understand some mechanisms and some principles so we can figure out where we fit. So in the second case here, our budget, our allowed amount of carbohydrate would be 50 grams a day. So how does that budget work? Well, then you have to add up, you have to kind of weigh or figure out, at least in the beginning, what your budget is. So let's say that you have 4 eggs, and most people think of eggs, well, that's animal food that has 0 carbs. Well, not quite. An egg has about 0.7 grams of carbs in the egg yolk. So if you have 4 eggs in a day, that's 2.8 grams of carbs. If you eat 2 ounces of blueberries, that's 5.6. If you have 2 ounces of heavy cream, that's 1.7. 3 ounces of almonds is 8.1, 4 ounces of cabbage, 3.9, 2 ounces of kale, 2.7, and so on. And then you add up all of that, and in this particular case, we get 24.8. And the numbers just happen to come out that way, I promise. But if someone was shooting to go under 25 grams, then this food would allow them to do that. But often people talk about being in ketosis or out of ketosis, being knocked out of ketosis. But it's more a matter of degrees. It's a gradual scale. We're not really in or out. We have a certain amount. We have more or less ketosis going on. So we're going to have more ketosis in the morning, for example, when we haven't eaten during the night. We're going to have more ketosis after a workout. All right, so no ketosis is generally considered less than 0.5 millimoles of ketones per liter if you measure it with a blood stick. Now, light nutritional ketosis, that's when you start getting into keto, is between 0.5 and 1. This is where a lot of people are going to get tremendous health benefits. Moderate ketosis is between 1 and 2, and this is if you need to be a little bit more aggressive in reversing insulin resistance or some underlying condition. If you're exercising, then after exercise you're probably going to have more ketones because you burn some fat. So again, different for different people, maybe between 2 and 4. And if you're fasting long term, like if you go on a fast more than 24 hours, now you're going to start getting higher numbers. So typically if you fast for 5 days or a week, most people are going to fall between 3 to 6. You typically don't want to get much above that. Ketoacidosis, that's a disease. That's for people who have no insulin and now they're burning fat because they can't use sugar at all. There is no insulin to take the blood sugar out of the bloodstream, so they're burning fat. So what you're going to find on these people, if you do a blood test, is their ketones are going to be high, but they're also going to have sky-high glucose. And that's not going to happen unless you have a disease where you're lacking insulin. For most people who are insulin resistant, they're not going to have that issue, and you're going to find yourself somewhere in fasting to no ketosis range. Next, let's look at food labeling, because someone claimed that half